I just wanted to be famous, just like anyone else. Especially when I could get paid good money for playing myself. After marrying Darcy, I'd done my part for reality TV. I'd sacrificed my dignity for a chance to be on the telly. 90-Day Fiancé. Before the 90 days made me a household name to both desperate housewives and dutiful husbands everywhere. My Instagram was constantly flooded from thirsty women. My fame helped me get invited to so many parties and events. My life now a B-list celebrity's wet dream. Just like I'd always wanted. Coming from England, I had no idea how far the fame game went in the States. I mean, I had no acting experience. But of course, that didn't matter on a show like 90-Day Fiancé. I like to think I was tall, dark, and handsome, but instead, I was more tall, pasty, and handsome. I did well with the ladies, sure, but I also had fashion sense and wit to spare. Combine those with the blue eyes, and I had Darcy hooked from the start. Not that it took much effort on my part. While neither of us catfished, upon meeting Darcy, I realized we both liked our filters. I was a little chubbier at the first meeting. Darcy in similarly rough shape, but she was still pretty. Darcy had a mad radiance about her, and sometimes that craziness could be attractive. Then again, we were both drunk, so I guess that helped. Finances were never an issue either. And neither was work. What can I say? Both of us came from well-to-do families. English high class meets all-American sass. And those TLC checks certainly helped. Darcy and I were a match made in trash TV heaven. Along with this beautiful if maddening heiress, I now had a chance to snag the spotlight I always wanted. A real shot at stardom. To my relief, I wouldn't need much help to secure attention either. Not with dear old Darcy leading the way. I must say the Silva twins had this shit figured out. Both Darcy and Stacy played up the cameras like two pretty court jesters. They claimed to have acting experience, but I took that nonsense with a grain of salt. What these twins did have, though, was an insatiable drive for fame. The same drive pulsating through my veins. The sisters also shared a competitive spirit when it came to chasing guys and flaunting their outrageous behavior for all the world to see. Perfect for these TLC freaks hoes. And the Silvas were naturals at it. Well, about as natural as one can get behind the layers of makeup and surgeries, or whatever other formulas they could find in their ever-increasing need to look younger. Recently, Stacy got married, and over time, I began to suspect I'd chosen the wrong Silva dollar. You see, when I met Darcy, I was ready for a committed relationship, but little did I know that I was about to be committed to an asylum rather than a stable girlfriend. I guess I should have been careful what I wished for. Being followed by cameras and crew was one thing. Living with Darcy Silva was another. Beyond the platinum blonde hair and demented but somehow charming smile, Darcy's pendulum of emotions swung everywhere. There were moments where she begged me to propose. Moments she'd latch onto my bottom or crotch in public. Moments where she'd make her hugs into a hangman's noose I'd never escape. Then there were the other times. The times she'd grow jealous over a woman eyeballing me. The tantrums Darcy would throw when I just wanted to stay home. And don't even get me started on her incessant crying. Darcy's waterfall had long been perfected and patented for the cameras. She could even cry on cue. Not to mention Darcy loved displaying that obsessed gaze of hers. That look TLC so often exploited. To this day, Darcy's desperation still a huge selling point for 90 Days' success. Through the good and bad, I could always count on my darling to be drunk by noon. To somehow fit herself into those skin-tight clothes. And to top it all off, Darcy was still hung up on her ex Jesse. Jesse was a younger man in his 20s. A blonde Dutch fellow who was nice enough from all the chance encounters TLC arranged between us and him. He certainly checked off all of Darcy's superficial boxes. Muscles, abs, ass, stylish. Foreign. Only this cub ran away from his cougar once Darcy had him shipped over to the States. I knew Darcy still hadn't moved on. And neither had the show's producers, judging by how much they'd forced Jesse into our lives and your living rooms. Apparently, the thirstier viewers couldn't get enough of his bodacious body or smug arrogance. That being said, I didn't have a problem with the guy. The problem was Darcy still did. In our brief meetings, Jesse would tell me as much. Particularly how a drunk Darcy would leave him vampire voicemails well after midnight. Apparently, she saw Jessie as another escape to a sweet, promising youth that left her long ago. Honestly, I cringed too much to be jealous. Hell, at this point, Jessie could have her back for all I cared. Certainly would have made my life easy now that I'd already secured my 15 minutes of fame, love. But much to both my horror and excitement, Darcy and I were still a hit. So much so I had to end up marrying the wannabe actress. I can't say I was too happy, but there was more money and fame to be made. Then, of course, the inevitable happened. TLC wanted a spin-off. And now that we were married, my darling wife agreed to it without even asking me. Darcy's desperation had prevailed again. Just my ***ing luck. With filming starting soon, Darcy and I retreated to Atlanta, Georgia. A brief break before the chaos began, but I had other plans. A little surprise for Darcy. On Friday night, we checked into the hotel non-dormant. Somehow, Darcy found this brick behemoth. There were no reviews online, no history of the hotel existing whatsoever. But I let Darcy pick, even when she was beyond drunk. And even when we drove past the city limits to find this place, I didn't complain. Especially since it'd be the last hotel Darcy Silva would ever choose. The non-dormant was expensive, but at least the interior was prettier than the towering mausoleum it resembled outside. The lobby was spacious, clean, full of glowing lamps giving off a reddish tint everywhere. Surrounded by painted portraits of people I'd never heard of. Down to the phonographs and telephone booths, the hotel looked to have been forgotten over time. Gone with the wind. And to no one's surprise, there was plenty of room. Anywhere except the 17th floor, the middle-aged receptionist told us. She was a black lady dressed in a skimpy purple uniform. The type of uniform best used for selling cigars rather than premium hotel rooms. Adjusting my thin glasses, I glanced over at Darcy. The tight black dress fit her well tonight. For once. Then again, maybe my own drunk buzz was distracting me. 17th floor, I said in confusion. Yes, the receptionist said. She leaned in closer. It's out of order. Taking control, Darcy grabbed my arm. Well, we'll take something on the first floor. The bellboy was quiet on the way to room 114. The purple suit covered his body, the purple cap his hair and age. His short body screamed high school, but the craggy face screamed mid-60s. Darcy kept trying to make small talk to no avail, both with me and the bellhop. Finally, we reached the room. To our relief, there was a mini bar. One that would need to be restocked before Darcy and I checked out. I put our bags by the queen-size bed, took a quick shot of scotch, and then another one. Then scanned our home for the night. The room fit the non-dormant's aesthetic to a T. Classy, elegant, the warm air cozy. But the whole scene felt a bit off with the times. Sure, we had the bare minimum in electronics. Dim lamps, an unreliable air conditioning unit, the tombstone radio, even a bulky TV that likely promised us HBO and pay-per-view. The bland white walls contrasted our colorful rugs. We had a stone fireplace, and those red Victorian curtains surrounding the bed were a good touch. As if on cue, Darcy pulled the curtains apart, over and over. "This'll be good for later, Tom," cried her obnoxious rasp. I did my best not to grimace. Instead, I just stepped away. As much as I wanted to walk out the room, I turned the lock, entombing myself with Darcy's manic madness. "Of course," I replied. The repetitive swoosh of those curtains felt like knives jabbing me deeper and deeper. I ran my hands along my arm. Over the blue suit jacket. I stole a glance at our wide windows. At the darkness hovering outside. "Ooh, I can't wait," I heard Darcy exclaim. My restless eyes faced the fireplace. The mantel above it had several miniature statues. Wide sculptures portraying a lynx and goat. All of them realistic enough. Maybe too realistic. Their snarling faces unsettled me, but amidst my rising nerves, I felt relief to see there was room for one more item up there. "We'll have some privacy," Darcy said. Compelled, I walked up to the fireplace. There was a spot in the middle of the mantel. Just perfect. "I just want to look pretty enough," Darcy rambled on. "I don't want to look bad for you, Tom." Forcing a smile, I stopped at the mantel. "Nonsense, dear." With slick speed, I reached into my jacket pocket. The small candlestick felt heavy in my hand. The handle's so firm. You look fantastic. I could hear Darcy stagger toward me, her heavy, carnal footsteps. But Tom said the cry I'd recognize anywhere. The cry of a dying, sex-starved coyote. And then I knew I had to act quick. In a split second, I placed the golden stick right there on the mantel. Right in that perfect spot. I want to be sexy for you, Darcy continued. I turned to see the drama queen get closer. The man-made Barbie doll shook her ass in a most hideous fashion, her drunken smile bigger than those over-emotional eyes. "Is this hot, babe?" she asked, a rhetorical question she didn't want the answer to. Fueled by ferocity, Darcy's eager hands gripped my shoulders. Her colorful claws fastened deep into my flesh. Now I was face to face with her pretty mask. "I want to have fun tonight," she cooed. "Just me and you, Tom." Like a hungry animal, Darcy leaned in close, ready for that wet kiss, until I held her back. I stumbled on my words. "I thought you were gonna call the manager." Darcy flashed that wicked smile. Nobody answered. I stole a look at the windows, took note of their locks. All I needed to know for my perfect plan. "Figures," I muttered. "Goddamn Southerners." "I did order room service," Darcy said. I faced her. "Room service? Well, yeah." She let out a drunk chuckle. I got hungry. Nodding, I looked back at the candlestick. My future murder weapon. My key to freedom. "Begin. I'll pay for it," Darcy said. She ran a hand along my chest. "You know that." Her other hand grabbed a hold of my ass. "I hope you don't mind," she said in a soft voice, an attempt at a seduction no one asked for. Battling my disgust, I leaned back against the mantel. "Right." I looked into her beaming eyes. "You did tell them room 114. Darcy giggled. "Duh. That was like 30 minutes ago." I looked on at her, dreading her demands. "Especially the ones in the sack. They take their time, I see," I quipped. Unable to control herself, Darcy leaned in for another kiss. The sudden movement possessed by passion, trying to delay the inevitable torture. I stole a glance at the red door. "I mean, how long does it take for room service to get to the first floor?" Just inches away from my lips, Darcy grabbed my chin, making me face her, deliberating on her own kill. "You okay, Tom?" she teased. "Here, let Mama cheer you up." I played along. Left with no other choice, I felt on Darcy's juicy buttocks, then moved along to those breasts. Her boobs were hard to miss, after all. All the while, my other hand strayed toward that candlestick. My escape. I held the brass handle in a tight grip, forced myself to keep fondling Darcy's warm boobs, even if the touch sickened me. Much like her moans. "Keep going, Tom," Darcy yelled. Shutting her eyes, she snatched my wrist, guiding me to those breasts. Oh yes. Caught between disturbed and intrigued, I watched Darcy sway before me, her eyes closed, her tongue hanging out. Darcy, a blonde dog in heat. Permanently, for that matter. Staying silent, my grip tightened on the stick, ready to transform this night from agonizing to euphoric. Then I felt a cold touch near Darcy's boob. A sharp edge, padding that was all too dangerous. Startled, both Darcy and I confronted one another. Nervous expressions conquered us. Darcy's eyes in heightened shock. "Oh," I yelled. Drawing my hand back, I fell against the mantel. I struggled to stay smooth, especially with the candlestick still in my grasp. "I'm sorry," Darcy said. With trembling hands, she patted down her huge boobs, her focus stuck on her chest. "I'm sorry, Jessie." I cracked up. Now I held on to the stick even tighter. Felt even more sadistic excitement rush through me. "Oh, Jessie." Shivering from stage fright, Darcy faced me. "Oh, Tom, I didn't mean it like that." "Where did Jessie come from?" I interrupted with a smug smile. Man, I was going to enjoy killing Darcy, especially when she was this embarrassed. Darcy took a step back, awkward beneath my drunk, unwavering stare. "I didn't mean to," she said in a shaky, defensive tone. "I didn't mean to, Tom." Pleading, she grabbed my arm, teardrops already forming on her campy canvas. "I promise." Pushier than ever, Darcy lunged in closer, literally cornering me. Now I felt those mammoth breasts, the suppressed beer gut, and the hard metal lodged somewhere in Darcy's mysterious boobs. I wasn't scared or unnerved. Such strange shit was typical for the Silva sisters. particularly in their endless quests for perfect bodies by any means necessary. Self-loathing was one hell of a drug. "Tom, tell me something," Darcy bellowed from the bottom of her insecure soul. Those claws caressed my shoulders in a death grip. Finally, I was forced to let go of the candlestick. Struggling to hide my agitation, I kept my gaze neutral. The death dream delayed for this agonizing magic moment. "Am I still pretty?" Darcy continued. Thick tears ran down her face. Her makeup overflooded into piddles of foundation. Trapped in her clutches, I nodded. Prayed my glasses weren't giving away the bored indifference in my eyes. "Darcy, you're beautiful," I told her, playing up the elegant British accent for all it was worth. "You really are. Jesse always said I needed to lose weight." Darcy continued on, ignoring my weak attempts at reassurance. "He said I wasn't pretty enough." Code red. I knew now I had to start acting earlier than anticipated. Time to play La Vie de husband once more. I leaned in toward Darcy. Too close for comfort, but I had no choice if I wanted to talk her off this anxiety ledge. I even forced myself to grab a hold of her wax hand. Darcy's kaleidoscopic jewelry nearly blinding me. "You are pretty, darling, I promise." Salivating her downward spiral, Darcy turned away, the avalanche of tears still rolling on down. Now she trembled in my grip, not from nerves but from excitement. The high she got any time I held her hand and pointed this spotlight on her constant outbursts. "That's why I go to the doctors," Darcy said. Still avoiding eye contact, she motioned toward her face and body. "That's why I get all this, Tom. I want to be young." "But you're already pretty," I started. Snapping into violence, Darcy pushed me back, her strength sudden but never surprising. Especially when she got like this. I fell back, felt the wooden mantle smash into my back, heard the loud collapse of those statues and candlestick. Darcy's bulging glare ate me alive. "I want to be prettier," she yelled. Uneasy, I stared on, struggling to talk to my gargoyle wife. "Darcy, I think you're beautiful, darling." I reached toward her face. "Jesse isn't here. He doesn't matter." Darcy snatched my hand. Then F***C me then. Horror conquered me. I kept from cringing. Or at least I hoped I did. "Darcy," I started. Before I could finish, Darcy grabbed me and sent my shaky hands straight into her cleavage. The suicide mission for my soul. Our dignity died right there on the spot. Darcy forced my touch through those melons, on their firm, tough texture. All the while, my fingers kept brushing against that bizarre metal. I stood still, helpless. The husband held hostage, her histrionics growing crazier. Darcy tilted her head back, closed her eyes, the tears replaced by slobber. Her trembling became convulsing, as if Darcy was experiencing an org*SM out of this world. "Fuck me, Tom," she screamed, her voice at a hysterical high pitch. "Prove to me I'm pretty." While guiding my journey through Silicon Valley, Darcy gave my ass a tight squeeze. "Come on, show me, Tom." Facing my darkest fears, I moved in toward those bloated lips, talked myself into getting any sort of arousal. "I will, darling," I said. "Come on, Jesse," Darcy shouted. I stopped and glared at her, ready to call her a complete B***TCH, until a hard knock interrupted our love. Startled, Darcy and I faced the door. Darcy's thirst paused for the moment, giving me a much-needed intermission. Another knock erupted. "Room service," cried the beaming voice. Eager to leave, I maneuvered away from Darcy. God knows I needed the space. "I'll get it." Darcy reached toward my arm. "Are you sure?" I moved quicker, just escaping her grasp. "Yeah." At the door, I stole a glance back at the mantel. The candlestick was still lying there, still awaiting my bloody touch and even bloodier crime. Of course, Darcy's mad smile stayed on me. Moving beyond her control, Darcy's hand strayed back toward those boobs, all while she watched me. Yet another embarrassing attempt at seduction. "No thanks, Darcy." Shaking my head in dismay, I opened the door. Sure enough, there was a female bellhop, one with the same height and frame as Darcy, probably just as annoying. The purple cap hid her hair, highlighting the lady's makeup smorgasbord of a tanned face. A familiar face. Smiling, she held up a long tray, the silver cloche ready to be pulled. Room 114, she asked in a squeaky clean tone. I shivered and stumbled back, the hallway's cold air even affecting this Englishman. Yeah, that's us." Without hesitation, the woman jumped inside, slamming the door behind her. She fixated those eager eyes on me. Her crazed Darcy look sent chills down my spine. My trembling arm waved at her. "What the hell are you doing? Get out!" In a vicious taunt, the bellhop looked me up and down. Like a starved creature studying its prey. "I'm here for you, Tom." She yanked the cloche off and dropped it to the ground. The clang shattered our tension, but didn't stop the dread, or my ever-growing fear. There on the silver platter was a pristine hatchet, the blade so shiny, the wooden handle so firm, an all-natural weapon. Next to it, I saw a small camcorder. "What the F***CK?" I cried. Cackling, the bellhop scooped up the hatchet and camera, threw the tray down by the cloche. The woman's grin grew wider. "You don't recognize me, Tom," said a voice reverting back to its natural rasp. I stumbled back by the mantel, closer to my candlestick. My defense. The lady tore off the cap and shook her head in supermodel fashion. With a delusional supermodel's flourish, long flowing blonde hair exploded all around her. The extensions were obvious, much like the full rack shand beneath her uniform. Through the orange tan, the bellhop's identity was illuminated. Stacy Silva. She had that pointed nose, one of the few differences between her and her twin. Both of them basically bloated Barbies. The psychotic smiles shared between them. "Stacy," my uneasy voice muttered. "You got me." She beamed. Holding the camera steady, Stacy pointed it right at me. "You ready for the show, Tom?" Playing a confident executioner, she then raised that sharp blade. Stacy was thirsty, all right. Thirsty for blood. "I'm afraid you're only in one episode." She took a menacing step toward me. Fueled by adrenaline, I turned toward the mantel, my sights set on the stick. I lunged for it. A knife shot into my stomach. One quick plunge. The blade went in deep, held in place by a kaleidoscopic grip. Crying out, I looked down at Darcy's army of rings, the gaudy bracelet, and the heavy kitchen knife she'd kept hidden in those heavier breasts. Following the blade's reflection, I looked up at Darcy's demented eyes. The crazy smile. "Sorry, babe," Darcy quipped. Both my hands latched onto Darcy's wrist. Warm blood flowed through our fingertips, but Darcy refused to let go. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. "It's for the show, Tom," Darcy continued. She gave me a kiss on the lips, a farewell kiss so long and sloppy. Darcy pulled back, her grin still locked in on me. She caressed my hands, her emotions too extreme to be insincere. "Darcy, never that good of an actress. Now you'll be famous like you always wanted." Darcy thrust the knife in further. I cringed. For once, not from sex and Darcy, but from pain. More blood sprayed across the rigs. More red to match the non-dormant série decor. Satisfied, Darcy stepped beside Stacy. Breathing heavy, I stumbled down to one knee. Now my smiling wife stood up over me. My body was too weak, the knife too deep for me to pull it out. "I got it, sis," I heard Stacy tease. Straining, I turned to come face to face with the other Silva. Now it was her turn. The hatchet gave me a savage whack across the temple. Fresh crimson coated my glasses, and the war paint became the Silva's latest makeup. I hit the ground. Darcy's kitchen knife sunk in deeper. My voice now joined my dignity in death. Helpless, I looked on at the twins' grins, felt my head turn into a sprinkler. The blood kept bursting out in intermittent sprays. A huge chunk of flayed forehead dwindled over my eyes, but I still saw it. Buried deep in the fireplace was a red light, a large studio camcorder tucked away in the very back, right next to a couple of boom mics. Standard stuff for TLC's productions. When we were filming, that is. "Can you help me carry him?" I heard Stacy ask Darcy. My breath slowed to an agonizing gasp. I looked toward the fallen tray. A white card lied just a few feet away from me. On it, there was a familiar number trapped in a familiar dark box, 90. And there was the familiar logo, 90 Day Fiancé. The words added beneath it chilled me to the bone. New series, Death After 90 Days, Season 1, Episode 1. Yo, he's gained weight. Hasn't he? Darcy replied. The kennel stick caught my eye, the weapon well out of reach, and now I saw a pair of small camcorders resting beside it on the mantel, each of them hidden by those ferocious statues. The lynx and goat, now ominous observers for my funeral. The producers will help get rid of the body, though, I fought. Darcy continued. Through the mutilated migraine, I faced the Silvas. My head fell back on the floor, my eyes growing weaker. That's the plan, right? Darcy said to Stacy. Stacy stole a look over at me. Oh, yeah, you're right. With a mad chuckle, she pointed the hatchet at me. He had no idea, did he? Darcy's smirk confronted me. She never looked prettier. Then again, those bloodstains certainly hid the blemishes better than her endless foundation. He just knew we had our own show. That's it. The literal headache further tormented me. Blood built up under my body. My hands stuck to the red glue, the crimson warming me from death's cold grip. Like a demented director, Stacy aimed the camera at me, filming every second of my impending death. The cute carnage. You think this'll work? She asked Darcy. As I lay dying, I watched the sisters. This deathbed so uncomfortable, but within, I felt some relief. At least Jesse wasn't involved. He wasn't the one killing me. Darcy apparently knew my murder would be more tragic, a bigger draw for her fans. And so had TLC. Darcy gave Stacy a light hit on the arm. Yes, she said, adamant. Jesse said wearing human blood relieves your stress. It'll free your anxiety. Skin cringed. Intrigued, Stacy faced her. So we just gotta wipe Tom's blood all over our body. Yes, Darcy replied. Jesse told me. He knows all this weird shit. It'll make us look younger, I promise. All around me, the cameras kept rolling, kept filming my bloodbath, my depression. Finally, Tom Brooks closed his eyes. Well before death could. Goddamn Jesse.